The number one issue plaguing new players and bad builds, in my opinion, is going to be having bad gear. Getting a decent enough build is not that hard. You go to max roll or you go to one of POE's many reputable content creators, and you'll be able to find a decent enough build there. But you start that build out, you get through the campaign, and now your gear has low rolls, which means you need many other pieces with low rolls to fit your needs, right? If you only can get 20 res a few places on a couple slots, you're going to need way more of those slots than you otherwise would if you could just get higher tier mods. So now you're kind of squeezed out of damage because all of your gear needs a bunch of like 20 res rolls or 20 stat rolls. You also are losing a lot of defensive mods and tiers, right? You're probably not getting suppression at a high tier. You're probably not getting Fizz DR. Probably don't have your prefix open on your chest piece so that you can craft the Gravicious, Fizz taken as mod. Probably can't craft it on your helmet either. Your rings won't have minus mana, so on and so forth. Now you got a build that has less damage, less defense, and it feels like crap. The only solution is to, and it gets a little bit tricky, but it's just to have an honest look at your gear, man. Find the weakest link, find out which of your pieces of gear is the crappiest, and spend some currency on it. Well, I'll have some examples of crappy gear in a bit. All right, check it out. This is probably a ring that you would have coming out of the axe. Let's be real. This is going to be just about every single one of your slots, or at least they should be, or close to it, somewhere around this, right? Maybe you got a life on it, maybe you got some else, but it's going to be like a 2-stone ring base. You got one decent res, and then you crafted a suffix res on there, right? That's it. This is obviously a huge piece of crap. It's a ring that has one T8 mod, and then you craft it on. Obviously you can find an upgrade, and you probably would. All right, so you play a little bit, you're blasting, you made it to yellow maps, you're starting to find some upgrades, and you ID this bad boy. Look at that. You ID, it's T6 lightning res, whatever, and then 2 tier 3 reses. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You craft life on there. There's a nice upgrade. Now the thing is, a lot of people will stop right here, and I think that's where everybody is getting tripped up. It's like, dude, this has 3 res rolls on it, and they're pretty good, and this is a pretty good slot. Right now you can go through and upgrade all of the rest of your gear, but eventually once you start doing that, you're going to come back to this ring, right? And you can do better than this ring. You could get an extra like 20 something res there. You could get a little more cold res, the all res is not bad, but you could get an extra 20 res here. That might free up a slot on another piece of gear, right? Let's say that you would like to replace a pair of rare gloves with a pair of unique gloves. This could be one part of the puzzle for you unlocking a very good unique that gives you lots of damage or defense. And that's kind of just what you've got to do. Even if you're just upgrading this slot, having that extra 20 res there could open up your boots to being able to have suppression on there. Or maybe it opens up your gloves to being able to have a very high accuracy roll, or it can go on and on. But just having really dense pieces, you don't want like a little bit of res everywhere all over your gear. You want juicy slots, okay? And so you can upgrade beyond this point, and now you've got 2 big, so this one, it's 2 big tiers, right? But now we still don't have that third one. So this is another kind of like maybe side grade. Maybe you really needed the int and it frees up some points, but the big nice one is going to be something closer to this a little bit. And I say that because it's got 2 stats, which can free up a bunch of points on your tree. It's still like T2, tier 4, right? It's like, oh, tier 4. But the res is still pretty nice. And this is what you can like moderately expect. And what you can do with this ring too is, if you need the minus mana cost, you can lock these suffixes down. You do suffixes cannot be changed. And then you use a Veiled Chaos Orb. You craft mana to block that from being unveiled. And then you unveil life. And then you can craft minus mana on there. And that's really, really nice. And a lot of people are afraid to do stuff like that. But sometimes you kind of have to do that to get some really nice pieces of gear, right? Like, are you just going to craft minus mana on this forever? Like, let's say it's a little bit better. This is an example, right? Let's say it's T2 fire res, so it's very compelling to use those 2 divines on it. Man, you can't just run around with no life on both ring slots, and potentially even your amulet as well forever. You really do want that extra 60 flat life on each slot and a little mana regen. That's big. And if you run without minus mana cost on a lot of attack builds, some spell builds, your mana is just completely effed up, and it's just going to be really uncomfortable. So, a lot of people will stop right here and never get life or never get minus mana. This is just one example of going through like a kind of progression. Honestly, that's all you've got to do is look at your weakest slot and find out where you can upgrade. I think on this character, if I do this right now, I think my strongest slot is going to be this belt because it has 3 pretty good resistances on it. It also has T1 armor, which is really nice since I'm Jug. It's got flask life recovery rate. It's not useless. Technically that's pretty handy. handy, and that being the only flask life recovery rate mod that I have on my character is actually pretty big, right? That's not bad. And then I have crafted life on here. Crafted life, it's not the best. Sure, I could have an extra 40 life on here, but considering how dense and how useful most of the other mods on this item are, I mean, shit, man, this is probably my best item right here. My worst item is probably going to be one of my rings, where I just have like a random T6 res roll here. I still don't have a ring good enough where I wanted to spend the 2 divs to get life on it. See, like, I'm literally that guy. I'm that guy, but this is my private league, which is pretty much solo self-found with a little bit of trading, right? It's like semi-group found. It's a soft SSF. See, this is where I'm at right now. You know, am I really going to spend 2 div on like fractured T4 fire res and a T4 lightning to get the life on here? But dude, I'm living that life, okay? I need to make my own upgrades. I need to watch my own video. Yeah, TLDR, you can't spend 5 chaos on every single one of your slots forever. Eventually, your next upgrade is going to be somewhere around 100 chaos, maybe even a couple divines, and that's a good thing, okay? You should want to spend your currency. You should want to upgrade your build. It's going to make it feel better, and you're going to have more fun. That's what the whole game is about, right? Don't settle on every single one of your slots. Spend a div or 2 on each slot. This could be just purchasing the items off the trade site, or you can craft them, right? Crafting is really not that hard. This formula is going to be how you're going to craft like literally 90% of all of your gear in the end game for a lot of players is going to be number 1, grabbing a fractured base. In this example, we're going to be crafting some suppression gear. So we grab tier 1 fractured suppression. Number 2, you're going to spam a resistance essence or a stat essence because you want to get 3 very good suffixes. We're going to always when you're crafting, you start with prefixes or suffixes first. You get all of them done and then you move on to the others. So we're going to start with our suffixes. We'll get all 3 of those and then we'll move on to our prefixes. So in this example, I'm going to use anger for fire res. We're going to guarantee fire res on there and we're going to roll for a 3rd good resistance or another good mod. And now we have tier 1 fire res, T1 suppression, and T1 cold res. From this point, it's really easy. Let's say we're a pathfinder and we want to get life on the glove so we can use the craft increase damage during any flask effect. So now all you've got to do is make it Searing Exarch dominant, so it's the only influence on that item, and you get to spam a combination of Eldritch Chaos, Exalts, and Annuls, right? You're going to use like some combination of these until you have life with a prefix open, like a decent life tier. So here is a real easy example of just wanting to Exalt slam onto there, right? Because you only have 1 prefix there. You wouldn't use an Eldritch Exalt here because it would fill our prefixes up and we'd have 3 of them. Even if we would hit a good life, we don't want that, so we can have that craft open. But yeah, let's say you're like kind of poor. Maybe you got unlucky crafting. You want to settle right here. So here is where I'd settle and I would just go ahead and do the craft. So now you have a decent, it's not even decent. You have a nice pair of gloves. Let's just say you finish up your implicits, you know, however you do them, you're going to spam some whatever. You do your lesser ekers and you get whatever it is, right? We got more suppression on there and it's Fizz multi. Okay, sick. That's it. That's all crafting is. A lot of your slots are just grabbing fractured base, spamming essence, finishing it with Eldritch, or just finishing it with a craft. And now we've got 1 nice piece of gear that has 5 good mods, and then, you know, it's got evasion rating or whatever. But, you know, this is solid. This is dense. This frees up a lot of res on your other slots. You could have rolled this with a different essence. If you need dexterity, strength, or int, you can roll that. But generally, I save those for rings because rings, when you use the resistance essence on them, doesn't actually add res. It adds like flat damage. And so you'd actually just want to use the stat essences on your jewelry because it's just the smart way to do it, right? You get your stats on your jewelry. You can get your res on your other slots with essence crafting. Super, super easy. Now you got something you could be a little proud of. Not so embarrassing to have a lot of slots like that on your character, would it? Right? You show your friends, you'd say, dang, that's pretty good. How did you get that? And you'd say, oh, it was really easy. I just watched a YouTube video. Okay, one final tool I'd like to share with you guys is the Path of Building Upgrade Finding tool. This is super, super handy. Not when it comes to finding upgrades for res or fixing your stats on your build, but for finding damage upgrades on pieces like your weapon slot, your jewelry, right? An amulet could be a big source of damage for you, getting plus levels, dot multi, maybe a weird talisman combination, something like that. Just like jewels are really good and easy, right? It's like insane for just finding high quality rare jewels, but mainly I've used it for weapons. All right, all you got to do is go into POB, click trade for these items. You may have to log in with your POE session ID, easy enough through the program itself. myself. I'm just not going to mess around with that here. You just go here, you click find item. If you need a specific influence, you can choose your influences. You can choose your max price buyout. So, you know, you just make it a few divines or whatever your budget is, you know, 50 chaos for a jewel, whatever it is. You click boom. And if you're not me, for some reason, my POB's broke. I don't know if everyone else gets this. Sometimes I can't use the tool. I'll get a big error. But if you don't get the big error, it'll take you back to this menu and you'll have a bunch of options that can automatically be added into POB, and it will tell you what the damage upgrade is. Or you can just click the trade URL. You'll get a URL with all the weightings and you can find your upgrade through that. Or you can just click boom right here and it'll copy paste the trade message for you, and you'll be able to message that person right away for whatever the item is. The POB tool, very handy in specific situations, really just for damage upgrades on like weapons or just damage specific slots. Anyways, please upgrade your gear, or at least just follow the max roll article, because we upgrade your gear for you. We kind of force you to for your own good. Okay, please spend your currency to upgrade your gear. Don't settle 5C in every single slot. Don't do it. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Peace.